Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Strava Craft Coffee can now be delivered to your doorstep every 2, 4, 6, or 8 weeks. 20% off when you go with that route. It's full of CBD, CBG, helps with chronic headaches, joint pains, so much more than that. Now first-time users can get 25% off your first purchase with code DNVR25 at StravaCraftCoffee.com. I am your host, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today, a very special guest, first actual MLB player I think we've had in studio.
Wow.
We've done the podcast thing once or twice before, and we've had you on our draft show.
Yep.
But now it's official, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Hirsh.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is cool. I love the setup. It's neat.
This is very nice. Yeah.
And the idea that I'm the first baseball player, well, baseball players don't have anything to do right now, so you should probably reach out to a few more and get them on here. But I'm glad I could be the first.
They might be available, I think.
If they're in town.
They could be. Now, where's your fastball sitting at these days, just in case? Just in case.
If I threw a pitch about as hard as I could right now, one, I wouldn't be able to wipe my ass in the morning. But two, I would be lucky to maybe get 70 miles an hour.
Come on.
I'm not in baseball shape. I'm in old man teaching shape. So I do play catch on the regular. I don't gas it up anymore.
So nothing with the Denver Bears?
No, nothing with anybody. The Browns, the Bears, the Elephants. I know. I don't know if Matt Replinger, a good friend of ours, I'm sure, has tried to put me on his roster every year in hopes that maybe I come out of retirement and feel the itch, but I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, he's been trying to sign Clemens and some of those guys. He signed you, but he just can't get you to play.
Right, exactly. We're in a contract dispute actually, and no, I'm just kidding. I don't have the itch to be competitive in that way. I love doing what I do right now in player development and helping high school kids, reach the goals and dreams that I aspired to. And there's a lot of guys in town that have a lot of talent, and they just need a little bit of guidance, and our facility does that.
I want to talk about that, about the great amateur Colorado baseball that we have here in our state, talk about fast performance, everything you're doing on the coaching side. But let's scratch the itch right away. 2007, Colorado Rockies, World Series. I mean, it's hard to really know where to get started. For you, let's just get started in the offseason. You actually get traded from the team that you're drafted by, come up through the minors. You win just about every award in the minor leagues. 2 games over 500, Houston Astros in 2006, and you go to a team that's under 500.
Yep.
What's the thought process when you get that word that you've been dealt?
Yeah, I got actually a voicemail from my GM in
Wade?
Houston. No, it was Tim Papura. That's who it was, Tim Papura. He was there for a very short time. But I just come out of the gym. I check my phone, and I'm like, yeah, you got a voicemail. So I listen to it. It says, hey, Jason, Tim Papura, GM. Just want to let you know that you've been traded to the Colorado Rockies. Thanks for everything that you've done for us, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward. And I was sitting there going, wow, a voicemail. Like, that's how this happens, huh? It was a gut punch for sure, because I was like, I had just come up in 06. Obviously, that roster was Clemens and Pettit and Oswalt and Backey and me and, Bagwell and Biggio and Brad Ausmus, like a who's who of major league, potential Hall of Famers and All-Stars. And I was fully intending on being part of this Houston lineup for a long time, and it was a total gut punch. And then I started doing my research and saying, all right, who are these Colorado Rockies I'm going to? And I started looking them up. I played with Tulo and Joe Kashansky in the Futures game in 2006. So I kind of knew them. And then, I had to look at who's Brad Hopp, who's Matt Holliday, like who are these guys? Fortunately, I had 2 other friends come over with me. Willie Taveras was already a really close friend, and then Taylor Buchholz, who ended up being my locker mate, my roommate when I was here in Denver. So I had some familiarity there, at least with those 2 guys. And then right away, I get phone calls from Clint Hurdle, from Dan O'Dowd, Rick Matthews calls, Bob Apodaca calls, like welcoming me to the family. And it made me feel a little bit more at ease with what was going on. Like it's always nice to be wanted. So that made me feel a little bit better. And then obviously I had no idea what was going to happen in 07. I just knew I was going to be with a new ball club. I was going to have some new teammates, and I was going to have to prove myself all over again.
And Houston, I think at that point, well, they're still in Florida. So now you're going to
now it's down to
Arizona.
Tucson. I was like, oh boy, going down to the old Tucson. For people who don't know, the old Tucson Rockies training facility. If you watch Major League, that's the Tucson facility, and it didn't really change a whole lot from when Major League was filmed to when we occupied it. So, maybe some small cosmetic changes, but obviously compared to the 5-star resort that they have now in Scottsdale, it was a total dump. And that was definitely, took some adjusting to. But again, I was given an opportunity to play on a big league roster, and that's all I could really ask for.
We were talking with Drew Goodman about High Corbett Field and some of those memories, because I think now the University of Arizona is
that's
using
their home field. Yep.
And they have a lease, so it's going to hit 100 years at a certain point. I think was it maybe 1927 was when it was originally built. And so you go, all right, well, this isn't quite the same as I think Kissimmee in Houston.
Yeah, when Kissimmee was a fairly new facility, it had only been, I think they had just done a multi-million-dollar renovation just a few years before I showed up. So, it was fairly, we'll go by new standards. It was a nice place. Now, the big league and the minor league locker rooms were separate. And I think a lot of what the Rockies did down in Scottsdale and keeping everybody together was a great move on their part to have that kind of unity between the major leaguers and the minor leaguers and kind of the intermingling that happens there and take away some of the stigmas of, ooh, that's a big leaguer, kind of deal. So, but like I said, I think the new spots, obviously everything's pretty much brand new. They're all state of the art compared to what we had back in the day. But now I sound like the old man yelling at the cloud, like, ah.
Have you got a chance to tour the facility at Salt River Fields?
Yeah, I've been down there a couple of times when I was doing stuff with the broadcast. Obviously, I got to go down there and check out everything. The weight room is ridiculous. It's about as big as this building that we're in right now here at the bar. It's 2 levels. Mm-hmm. They've got cardio up top, and they've got all the state-of-the-art machinery down below. And obviously all the fields are immaculate. They've got, I think they've got 2 carbon copies of Coors Field down there that they utilize so, players can be familiar with dimensions and, reading fly balls and those types of things. So they pulled out all the stops, just like they did when they built Coors Field, 28 years ago, 29 years ago now. They pulled out all the stops. I mean, the place is legitimate 5-star resort.
Yeah, it's fantastic. When I was down there for the Arizona Fall League, I like Camelback Ranch a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this place is great. And then the next day at Salt River, and I was like, as fantastic as Camelback Ranch is, where the Dodgers and White Sox train, Salt River Fields is literally twice as good.
Yeah.
So the second best is still nowhere.
Yeah, and I think the one thing the Montforts have always been really good at is putting together really nice facilities. Coors Field is the 3rd oldest ballpark in the National League, and it still looks brand new. Like you walk in there and you just the aura, the feel of it, everything it feels new. You walk around Chase Field in Arizona and you're like, man, this place is a dump, right? And it's it's way newer than Coors Field is.
Yeah.
And it's not that old. So there's the look and feel of places has always been something that they've done extremely well. And my understanding is they told the architects, go ahead and throw away the blueprints for this place because you're never going to do it nicer.
Yeah, we have a branch, essentially, I guess you could call it, down in Phoenix, and we were going back and forth about how did the Rockies have such great attendance? And I was like, well, again, the stadium is way nicer. It is outdoors, whereas in Chase, you can open the roof, but you're it's like riding in a car with the top down. It's like, you're still boxed in a little bit.
Right.
And again, the downtown area,
right.
you just can't beat it. It was done perfectly, and you want to go to Coors Field, even if you're not a big sports fan, you know what Coors Field is now.
That's why the Rockies draw so well, right? Yeah. They've made Coors Field an experience, right? Whether you're a businessman in town who is just want to entertain friends, or you've got buddies coming in or family, like, hey, let's go to the ballpark, right? We're going to drink some beers, we're going to have a good time, we're going to go walk around the place. Oh, and look, there's a baseball game going on here too, if you want to watch that. So that's kind of one of my, I guess, one of the downfalls of Coors Field is that the fans are not always there to watch baseball. They're there to just interact. It's basically like another bar in Lodo. It's just, like you said, you happen to have a baseball game going on at the same time.
Well, they call Wrigley Field the world's largest singles bar,
yeah.
and Coors Field may be the world's largest beer garden.
It really is.
At least in the U.S. I don't know. I haven't been to every part in Germany to know exactly the layout. Maybe that's not actually true.
Yeah.
2007. Now, I think everyone probably has been a part of a special team that's won a championship. Where you're talking about Little League, or if you're on a bowling team when you're a kid, whatever it was, you've kind of experienced that maybe at
bowling
least
team?
Once in your. Hey, I bowled, so
Okay.
I have been a part of something
congratulations!
fantastic.
It's amazing.
We went to sectionals.
Yeah,
you know, I'm the anchor.
Did you put the curve on it too?
I had some spin on the ball.
Yeah. Did you wear a little wrist brace?
I did not.
See, like when I was a kid, that was like the thing. Like somebody's got to have a wrist brace. Like that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I had it for a little bit. Worked my way out of it. You had the
Okay.
16-pound ball.
Yeah.
Had a spare ball for my spares.
So you could throw it straight.
I had the spare ones.
Nice.
Yeah, 280, my high game, one strike away from a perfect
Everybody
game.
just tuned out. They're like, I hate bowling.
Did. Yeah. They did. And people who are bragging about being good at bowling.
Right, exactly.
Me and Mookie Betts. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's the.
So
that's
The Big
elite
Lebowski
class.
is your favorite movie then?
Absolutely.
It's a
a
classic.
If I let my hair down, I practically.
You could be
look
the
like
Jesus.
I could be. Yeah.
You could be. That'd be
that
amazing.
or the dude. Either way. But when you talk about being a part of something special, at some point it clicks. And I'm curious, when you go to camp in 2007, again, you're just getting to know everybody.
Sure.
So maybe you don't get that feeling yet. But did others sense it in March of 2007, even February? Or did it take some while during the season to realize, no, this is a different team. This is a different clubhouse than ones I've been with before. When does that switch flip?
So I think it's spring training. I think it was just business as usual. Like a lot of these guys had been to multiple spring training. Obviously, Todd's been around forever. Matt and Brad and those guys had done this for another a couple of years to this point. I can tell you the moment that we realized something special was happening. There was a moment where I believe we were playing. You might have to look it up, but I believe we were playing the Marlins at home, and we were down by 5, 6, 7 runs, something like that. And we came back and won. And walking up the stairs back to the clubhouse, Jeff Francis was right next to me, and he looked at me and just kind of laughed, and he smiled and said, "What's up?" And he goes, "Who's going to do it tomorrow?" Right. And I think that was when we were in the midst of like just starting that run, or we may have been right in the middle of it where, either the offense was taking the lead or the pitching was taking the lead, but somebody was picking up somebody else during that entire stretch. And I think that's where we all started to kind of figure out like, hey, there's something cool going on right now. But obviously in the midst of it, we were just competing our butts off and trying to, just play one game I know it sounds stupid and cliche, but we were playing one game at a time. But we didn't know that the Padres were going to have an epic collapse and that we were going to set up 162 at home. But, in that moment, I just remember walking up the stairs and him looking at me and going, "Who's going to do it next?" And I think that's when we realized that everybody was in this, all at the same time. It wasn't like one aspect of our team was far superior than the other.
I think it still speaks to how special the group was, where you were somewhere in mid-August, maybe a game or two over 500, the 8th best record in the NL, but yet one game at a time.
Yep.
That's all you can do. And that's, like you said, that's where the streak starts to get going, and it's somebody new every night.
Yeah, and if you look too far ahead of things, then you lose focus on the present. I talk about this with my clients at Fast and high school kids that I coach too, is that you can't worry about the future and you can't dwell on the past. You've only got to be able to take care of what's happening right now, and it's very Far Eastern. And Alan Jaeger, if you're watching, thank you, bud, appreciate that. You have to be focused on that one game, right? In that one inning or that one at bat, that one pitch, whatever it might be. And that's, I think everybody was basically pulling everybody else by the bootstraps and saying, "Hey, let's go." Like this is a team effort. And obviously a lot of special things had to happen that year. You had to have guys that had career years. You had veterans on that team that were basically throwaways from other organizations that had amazing seasons, both on the road and at home, both at the plate and on the mound or in the field. So a lot of special things happened that year. We caught lightning in a bottle and we rode it.
I want to ask you about that. Everyone, obviously Helton's a leader on that team, Holiday, handful of other guys that were, all-stars before and after, but who was kind of the undervalued guy that maybe doesn't get enough credit? But before I do that, got to remind all of our listeners here that members of the DNVR.com, now only 50 cents for your first month. You get a member-sized beer when you're down at the DNVR bar on the corner of Colfax and York. If you have an annual membership, you get a free t-shirt with that. If you come out to any of our tailgates for the Broncos or the Nuggets party bus even, you get those price breaks. Member-sized beer at the DNVR bar, as I mentioned. That's a big one. That
is
covers
it a big
the
beer?
cost.
Is it like 64 ounces? Like, what is it?
It's a lot bigger. It pays for the subscription essentially.
So it's like 2 of these.
Yes.
Like Germany style.
It's
like
a good
you got to
size.
hold it with 2 hands.
It might almost be like a Stein. It could be very much.
I like it.
You need to have strong.
And it's only
wrists
50 cents
for your first month. That's it. And if you want
It's a
annual
no-brainer.
membership, again, you get the.
I'm going to help you.
free
That's
shirt.
a no-brainer. 50-cent beer. That's better than anything you're going to get at Coors Field.
That's it. Members only Discord. Again, extra raffle tickets when you're down at our watch parties. It's if you can't get a ticket to Ball Arena, this is the next best thing when it comes to Avs and Nuggets. And you know what? If you're looking to get in on a little action here coming up with these conference tournaments, turn your team's victory into your own big win with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. It's that simple. If they win, you win. Illinois listeners, we've got some big news for you. Mobile registration is back, and right now you can sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook simply by downloading the app right now to your phone. We've got Chicago now. We've got Chicago in our loop. We're here in Denver, Phoenix, now CHGO.
CHGO. Nice. I like it.
We've launched, man. So now I'm going to be reaching out
You
to the
guys
Cubs and White Sox folks.
You hate vowels.
We just allowed our first one. We just allowed our first one. We're trying to open up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, because you can't spell Chicago without an O.
You could do CHCG. It was a big conversation. Do we go that route?
It's like airport codes.
Yes.
They don't make a whole lot of sense, but you know where they're at.
Yes. If you're a frequent flyer, you can break down that code for sure. Now, if Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still join the action with DraftKings Pools. Everyone can play free all March long for a shot at over $250,000 in prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR. Bet $5 on any college hoops team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. If they win, you win with promo code DNVR this week at DraftKings Sportsbook. 21 years or older, restrictions apply. Colorado only, new customers only, minimum $5 deposit. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. How is Cal Lutheran Regals and the Kingsmen? How are they looking so far this year?
The Kingsmen are playing very well right now. I believe they've only lost one game. I checked last week. I haven't checked this week to see where they finished the weekend, but they're playing very well there. I believe they're leading the SCIAC division, which is great. And obviously I hope they win SCIAC. And Chapman, who's typically our biggest in-state rival, is at least last time I looked, not having a great year, which bodes well for Cal-Lu because whenever Chapman comes around, it's usually a tough game. And in the past, they've come up ahead of it. But I believe 2017, we were national champions, and that's a first time ever for our program, and I couldn't be happier for those guys.
Yeah, we'll talk D2, D3 sports here.
Don't sleep on D3s.
Don't. You can't. JUCO, D3, it's where it's going down at. It's also going down at Evoca TV. I know, Jason, from personal experience, Nuggets, Avs, can't watch them on TV, can you?
No.
I
can't even watch the Rockies, so.
No. Well, you have the ability to. You just may not
I don't have a cable package, therefore,
okay.
Yes, I can't watch it.
You literally meant you can't.
I have the MLB TV. We can talk about this when we get to that point, but I have the MLB package to watch games, but I can't watch local games, which is a huge problem in my book.
Well, I've got a solution for you.
You do?
And it's Evoca TV. Yes, go to evoca.tv/DNVR,
I'm doing it right now.
And you can see Nuggets. You can see Avs. Also now just added the Rockies. We're talking Rapids. Get in on them. Big 3-0 victory over the weekend against Sporting KC. I know you here is loving that. Oh, that's coming up this week. I have them going over with a victory this week. But last week over Atlanta United. We're talking Mammoth, CSU Rams, Denver Pioneers. It's available up and down the Rocky Mountain region, Denver, Springs, Phoenix, Boise, and Twin Falls, Idaho. And yeah, Altitude Sports, AT&T Sportsnet. Need we say more? Again, go to evoca.tv/DNVR. 0 hidden fees and contracts. It's just $25 per month plus a receiver. Your price gets locked in for 2 years, and you never have to worry again with Evoca TV. And you can enjoy the Nuggets and Avalanche once again. That's the solution.
I'm going right now.
EVOCA.
See, I got to spell it right.
Like evocative, yeah.
EVOCA.
EVOCA.TV/DNVR. DNVR. There we go. So now when the numbers go up and we say, hey, we got this many new subscriptions, we got one right here live on the air. So don't be shortchanging.
There it is.
I got to get at least one of those new subscriptions.
Watch the Colorado teams you love. Sign up. I'm in.
That's it. That's
$25 a month.
It's the solution, and now a whole generation of Nuggets fans can actually get to watch Nikola
and
Jokic.
Avs fans, because the Avalanche are pretty damn good right now.
Yeah, best record in the NHL. So, I mean, could have two parades going on here very
Titletown
soon.
coming back to the Mile High City.
That's it. I'm down for that.
I don't know about the Broncos and the Rockies, but
Broncos,
the other two teams
Broncos
might
are
be.
only one QB away from.
Allegedly.
Well,
we could have a whole nother
whether or
discussion
not
about
that will happen is the conversation.
Yes.
But they are always one QB away.
Sure. Of course they are.
And one Von Miller away. Let's throw him in there. I think he's coming
I think
back.
he just tweeted something out today that he wants to come back.
He did. He's teasing it. He definitely wants to come back, man. Vaughn is.
He's going to pull the
special.
Aroldis Chapman of the NFL. He's going to go win a title with one team. He's going to get traded from his main team, go win a title with another team, and then come right back and try and help the Broncos get back to where they need to be.
Yeah, the LA Rams might not be the same as the Cubs, but Matthew Stafford is the closest thing with everything he had to deal with the Lions.
Yep.
Von Miller.
That's the by the way, that's the closest the Detroit Lions will ever come to winning a Super Bowl.
Detroit Rams, man. Love those shirts. I got to get one of those because that's already a collector's item. You got to think.
Yeah, somebody tweeted that out or Instagram or whatever. They made a meme and said, like with Stafford and all the other Detroit connections that were in the Super Bowl, and they're like, this is the closest Detroit will ever get. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It is probably the closest they'll ever get. Huh?
Very true.
Sorry, Detroit fans.
It's all right.
It happens.
Now, your catchers for that season, or actually, no, the question that we left off at was the underrated, maybe undervalued guy. I mean, again, there were numerous, and I think everyone who watched the Rockies in 2007 has their guy that's like their guy that, again, wasn't Helton, wasn't Holiday, wasn't even, Ubaldo to an extent, although, he was still on the come up.
Sure.
Who for you do you think deserves even more credit than they probably already do get?
My favorites on that team were Matt HIRSH'S and LaTroy Hawkins. Both of those guys. And, and I think, so like in a clubhouse setting, right, in most clubhouses, at least the ones that I've been in, you kind of have factions, right? You have like the veterans are over here and the rookies are over here and the Latin players are over there and so on and so forth. And you ought to have kind of those liaisons between those parties, right? And so with the veteran group, you had guys like Spilly that were kind of part of that group. And so Spilly, obviously, he's got the personality. He can be friends with anybody. So, he kind of kept the rookies involved in it, guys like me and Taylor and so on. And then you have like the Latin American faction, which is, a lot of those athletes don't speak great English or a ton of it. And so that's where Torrealba kind of came in, and he was, he'd been in the league for a long time. He's been in America for a long time. He spoke perfect English, and he can kind of work back and forth between it. And that kind of has that cohesiveness, right? So, but guys, for me, guys like Matt HIRSH'S and LaTroy Hawkins, even though Hawk rode my ass the entire season, you want to talk about rookie hazing, and to this day, I could send Hawk a text message right now, and he'd message me right back. Like we're still really good friends, and I appreciate everything he tried to teach me in 2007 about being a pro and being a not only a baseball player but being a professional baseball player and the things that go along with that. But HIRSH'S was a consummate professional. He was just a great guy. He was friends with everybody. Not a bad bone in that kid's body. And Hawk was the same way. But Hawk was not afraid to snap if somebody needed to be put in line. It didn't matter who it was, whether it was Todd or me or Tulo or whoever it might have been. Hawk was kind of the veteran presence in the clubhouse who made sure everybody got along. And I think for me, those two guys from the pitching staff side, those two guys were the anchor for us. They were the guys that meant the most to all the pitchers on the staff. Everybody has different personalities. You got serious guys, you got clowns, you got, the veteran guys, you got the rookies, and so on and so forth. But those two guys were amazing, and Jeremy Affeldt was in similar vein. Those kind of three guys kind of helped everything stay cohesive. It's
interesting too that you point those two guys out, HIRSH'S and Hawkins, because they've transitioned into somewhat of a coaching career. I know Hawkins is more of a special assistant, but got to see him down on the field for the Futures game. He was there for that, coaching the American League side, and HIRSH'S as a pitching coach for the Diamondbacks.
The Dodgers. Is he not with the Dodgers anymore? Is he with the Dame?
He's
in the big leagues with the D-backs.
HIRSH'S?
Yeah.
Matt HIRSH'S is one of only 2 players, along with Steve Finley, to play with every NL West team.
How about that?
And him and Steve Finley both did it in 2007. The Rockies were the last piece of that puzzle.
Yeah.
How about that for a trivial piece of information?
I like this. So Steve Finley, fun story about Steve Finley. The guy was a master of picking signs. So he would sit in the video room and watch all the feeds from the game, and he would pick up all the little idiosyncrasies of the pitcher. And he'd come running down to the dugout and be like, if his cheek twitches and he's holding his hand this way, it's a curveball. And everyone would be like, dude, seriously, stop. Like, I don't want to hear it anymore because unless it works 100% of the time, we don't trust it. But he thought he had every pitcher in the book, and that was fun. He was a fun guy to have around.
I don't think
definitely a different human being, like very physically fit and did some really weird thing. He traveled with a like a squat machine that you put over your shoulders, but he would lay on like a stability ball and use his feet and like kick it into the air, and he did some crazy things. But the guy had been around forever, and he was a physical specimen, so nobody really questioned him.
Oh yeah, I mean, was a 5-tool kind of player for the most part. A lot of speed, had some pop when he was younger, and played until he was like 41.
Yeah, and I believe he was left-handed, which helps him stick around for a little bit.
Sure does.
So
now your catchers that season that you pitched to, because we'll get to the season-ending injury, but Yorvi Torrealba, Chris Iannetta, really 2 of the best. Oh, I did want to ask you if it made you feel old to know that Yorvi's son is in the Rockies system, Yorvis.
Yes, it makes me feel old.
Okay.
While you were downstairs, I was telling the Mr. Producer over here that I've got kids, like when we create profiles in our facility for training, I'll ask them like, what's your birthday? And they're like, oh, it was September 2007. I'm like, dude, I was in the World Series then. You were just popping out into the world, and here I am training you. Like, I grew my business on my pseudo celebrity when I retired from the Rockies, and mostly it was because parents knew who I was. Kids have no idea that I played in the big leagues, none whatsoever. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to play for the Rockies. Like, oh really? You played for the Rockies? I was like, yeah, like 2007 we went to the World Series. Like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, man, I'm 40 years old and I feel like I'm like a dinosaur now.
And that kid that you registered that day, his name, Kaz Johnson.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because parents got all wrapped up in October.
Yeah.
So just started naming
everybody had named their kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kaz. Well, you don't see a lot of Kaz's.
So back in 2007, this will again kind of date me here. So back in 2007, my wife was pregnant with our oldest son, Brady. And there were 7 girls on that team that were pregnant all at the same time. And they all had girls except for me. I had a boy. And they went on to have, other children. But now those children are like going to be in high school, and it's just weird. Like I've known some of these girls, I've known some of the boys that were born prior to obviously to 2000. I know since they were in diapers. And Corey, I just saw Corey Solomon the other night, and I was over at his house, and we were doing some stuff for our high school team, and his daughter comes downstairs. I'm like, holy cow, you're in high school.
She's great at golf.
Yes, she's a fantastic golfer.
Yeah.
And it's no surprise because Corey's pretty good at golf too. But I was like, I can't believe that you're in high school now. Like, I remember when you were like, hi, I'm Jason. Nice to meet you. Like, I remember when you were crawling on the floor in the family room after games. So it's just a weird dynamic to think that all these girls are effectively, grown women that are moving on and having like real lives like we had.
Yeah, we're getting old, man. We're getting up there.
I'll drink to that, I guess.
There you go. All right. So Yorvi's father, Yorvi Torrealba, Chris Iannetta, those were your catchers.
Yep.
Again, two of the greatest in franchise history. What's the difference between those 2 guys? What skills did one possess better than the other, or were they cut from the same cloth as far as being an effective backstop?
Yeah, Yorvi was a veteran. He'd been there for a long time. He'd been with many organizations prior to 2007. So, some of the things that he was able to do with me were more from the veteran side of things. Obviously, he didn't have a great arm. And I, coming up with the Astros, I had a lot of catchers in my system that didn't have great arms. And so that kind of helped me learn how to control the run game and be quick to the plate and those types of things. Yorvi was really good at just controlling the game. He would turn around, he'd talk to the umpires, he'd buy pitches for me, which is what a good catcher should do.
Yeah.
Right. Iannetta was still young. Like it may have been his 2nd year in the league. And I think I came up playing against him in the minor leagues when he was in Tulsa and I was in Corpus Christi. And I-Man he was a great receiver. He was a great game caller, but he was still cutting his teeth in the league. And obviously we've known that he went on to have a great career, being a veteran backstop back there. And we're not really known, I guess, in 2007, he had a pretty good offensive year, but not really known for his bat, but more his receiving and catching skills. And so I-Man was just kind of learning that, that part of his career and kind of getting it off the ground. And I love throwing to both of those guys. Obviously, Ionette had better arm, so I didn't have to be as cautious with base runners. When Torrealba was back behind the dish, I had to be a little bit more cautious, but they both called a great game. They both received the ball really well. And really, it was just at the end of the day, who had the hot hand is who, Hurdle was playing.
Yeah, no, that's a very nice if you have that opportunity now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're playing that's your catcher now.
Yeah. It's like a running back by committee kind of situation, but a catcher by committee.
Yeah. Do you think the game misses that, because now you have your guy that you throw to, and that's it? Like every 3 out of every 5 days, it's going to either be Nunez or Elias Diaz. Whereas, as you said, it kind of was a mix and match thing.
Right.
Do you think that's something that it has plagued the game, maybe from the offensive standpoint, because you're not putting the best bat in, you're really just doing it for the battery purposes?
I feel like catchers, you kind of just expect catchers not to hit. It's just part of the stigma that comes along with being a catcher. Is you're probably not a great offensive player. That's why you're going to bat in the bottom of the order. You're mostly in there because you can handle the pitching staff. You know each guy. Being a catcher is I always joke that pitchers are the best athletes on the field, which we are, but catchers are the generals, because they have to know, not only do they have to be able to catch the ball, right, competently catch the ball, but they also have to take offense into account. They've got to be able to hit and run and know the game. But then you also have to know each and every pitcher on your staff. You have to know what their likes and dislikes are. You have to know how to fix them when they're broken. You have to know what their stuff is and when it's on and when it's not on, and how to fix things on the fly. And that, it takes a lot of effort, right? And, with our high school catchers over at high school that I coach at, that's something I've got to get them more involved with, is like, listen, you've got a great pitching staff here. You've got to learn how to control them. You've got to learn every in and out that they have, what makes them good, what makes them bad. And when things are going well, what are those things? When things are not going well, how do you find the things that we can just get through 5, 6, 7 innings with, that are going to allow us to have success? But big league catchers, when you have 2 of them, you've got to have 2 relationships, right? And some guys have a better relationship, whether it's with me, with Torrealba, or with Ionetta, just whoever we were working better with at the time. They have a lot on their plate as catchers. And so I think for me, catchers are the generals. They need to know all these things. And at the end of the day, whoever is doing the best at that right now is who you're going to start. So, the idea that the Rockies even have 2 competent catchers behind the dish is a blessing for them, because they may have, let's just say, one guy handles 2 of the starters really well, and the other guy handles the other 3 starters really well. That's easy. And I just plug and play, matchups, and I plug and play my catchers with the right pitchers. And, when I came up with the Astros, I had a personal catcher almost at every level. Not because I'm like some special person, but because the organization felt I needed guidance in certain ways, right? I had a veteran catcher when I was in Double-A named Dax Norris, and there was no reason he should have been in Double-A. The only reason he was there was for me, and he taught me a ton about the game. Just, pitching, just talking with him, being a professional, those types of things. And I was in when I had gotten sent down after my injury with the Rockies, I had Sal Fasano behind the dish, giant-bodied, catcher. Taught me a lot about catching. Ironically, I learned more about catching from him than I had learned from anybody else. But it was good for me to know that, because that helps me when I'm on the mound. When I got to throw a pitch in a certain situation, I know where I need him to be set up. And when he's set in that spot and he's putting down the right fingers and we're on the same page, pitching gets easy at that point. And so when when you've got different personalities and different pitchers, when you can be on the same page with each other, that's a blessing.
Oh, that's incredible insight there too. Again, it's good to hear about Fasano. You just won the World Series there.
Yep.
At least in that coaching staff. And that Dax Norris, what was his name?
Dax Norris. He was the head.
He was your Crash Davis.
He was my Crash.
Was your Crash Davis.
And that was his nickname, was Crash.
Yeah.
Because he had been around. He was probably 28 playing in Double-A. I was 22, 20. Yeah, I think I was 22 Like, he had no reason to be there. The only reason he was there was for me. And his other nickname was Powder because he was bald and didn't have a hair on his body. He was pasty white skin. But I loved, I've got great memories of working with Dax. And Dax came up with the Atlanta Braves. So he was with Maddox and Smoltz and Glavine and Avery, and like he was dealing with a lot. And we always joke, when we're at the bar we talk about baseball, and we're at the field we talk about being at the bar. It's just one of those deals. But I learned a ton about him at the bar, learning about baseball and things that the guys who came before me did, and things that obviously I was able to take into my career.
And well, if he's Crash, I mean, you definitely were Nuke.
I was definitely Nuke for sure.
Pitcher of the year.
Yeah, maybe without the lingerie and the breathing through the eyelids, I was pretty close.
You were pretty darn good. We'll get back to those days. But for anyone that needs to breathe through their eyelids or just sleep better, you got to check out Wana Optimal's Fast Asleep Gummies. They're going to leave you feeling rested and refreshed in the morning. Not like that over-the-counter stuff that might knock you out with powerful drugs and leave you in a fog. It's got a carefully calibrated formula that contains 10 milligrams of CBD, just a hint of THC. That's going to get your eyelids feeling heavy in just 5 to 15 minutes. And in 0 minutes, you can order Wana Optimal's Fast Asleep Gummies at lightshade.com and get 25% off with code DNVR. Use code DNVR at any of Lightshade's 10, soon-to-be 11, Denver metro area locations. Our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group, I need to point out, have taken great care of all of our DNVR members over the years, especially those who've made that permanent switch. And you know what? Despite the lockout, there's a lot of Rockies fans out here with those pearly white smiles these days, thanks to Green Mountain Dental Group. Best part, when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam with them, you're going to receive a free Sonicare toothbrush from Green Mountain Dental Group, located only 15 minutes from downtown Denver. I feel like I've only scratched the surface here, Jason, so I'm going to have to just kind of move things along and maybe get to some things another day. But
I said I'm an open book. You ask the questions, I'll answer them.
It's the time thing. I know you only have like 3 hours, so
right.
I don't know if I can get it all done in 3. But no,
fine.
I need to hear the Vin Scully story. Great start, and I only knew this recently because whether it was maybe your birthday this off season, we tweeted something out from the account, and you said,
"That's right.
Funny, this picture reminded me of
100%.
Yeah, and you got to share that story right now."
So I grew up a Dodgers fan. I grew up in LA. I grew up like 10 minutes from Dodger Stadium in Burbank. And so I grew up listening to Vin Scully call Dodgers baseball games, and he's always, he's timeless classic voice. And,
legend.
Nobody will ever come close to what he was able to accomplish. So my only start, so this was like a dream come true for me, was to pitch at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
Because again, it was my childhood, place, and obviously Vin Scully and all the history that goes with that. So I make the one start as a Rocky in LA, and it didn't go very well. I think I maybe went 5 innings, maybe. I faced off against Brad Penny. We didn't win, but I had a ton of family and friends that were there at the game. So I come out of the game and I go into the locker room, and I'm kind of getting cooled down from the throw, and the TV's on, and Vin Scully is talking about me, and he's like, Josh Hirsch ends up going 5 innings and this, that, and the other. I'm like, Josh Hirsch? I'm like, he called me Josh the whole game. Like, my name's Jason. Like, it's been a dream come true for me for Vin Scully to call one of my games. So fast forward however many years it was, and I'm doing the broadcast with Root at the time, now AT&T. And we're in LA, we're shooting another special interest story with my buddy Alan Jaeger. And so I get to be at the field, and Alana Rizzo, who used to be our on-field reporter, is now working in LA. So I find Alana prior to the pregame, and I said, Alana, listen, I've always wanted to meet Vin Scully. He's been a childhood idol of mine. Is there any chance that you can set something up where I can meet him? She's like, absolutely. She said, set your alarm for 5 o'clock. Meet me at the press box. I'll take you over to see him. So I was like, perfect. So I set the alarm, 5 o'clock, run upstairs, and she walks me in there, and it's, it's like, he's like a saint, right? Like he's perfectly lit. He's got the Dodger blue suit on. Like there's an aura about him, and I'm like, oh my! And his wife's there, and so I was like, Vin, it's been an honor. I've listened to you since I was a kid, but I got a beef with you. He goes, all right, what is it? I said, the only game I ever pitched at Dodger Stadium, call me Josh Hirsch for 5 innings, and he looked at me and he said, son. He goes, did you win that game? I said, no. He goes, then you never really pitched at Dodger Stadium, did you? And I was sitting there going, like, Clearly not the first time he's ever mispronounced a name or anything like that. And, I got a great picture with him that I'll always cherish and remember. And it was a great experience. And on top of that, I actually got to meet HIRSH'S, who was a childhood idol of mine. And we talked because his son is the same size as me, had shoulder surgery like I did, and gave me his phone number. He's like, hey, anytime you ever want to chat. I'm like, oh my God, I got HIRSH'S number. And I got a picture with Vince. It was like the greatest trip ever to LA for me. But Vin is an icon. He's a legend. And I will never, ever forget the fact that he mispronounced my name for 5 innings. And
then turned the knife too.
And then he definitely did turn the knife. But I was totally okay with it in that moment.
So I had a similar kind of story like that. Not that I pitched at Dodger Stadium or anything. So really, it's not even close at all. No, just running into John Sterling at Yankee Stadium, who I listened to growing up, listening to Yankee games. And I don't know what got in my ear, got in my head. I go, hey, congratulations on a great career. I hear you're retiring. He's like, no, I don't, people might be saying some things. And I was like, oh, no, I really hit a nerve. I don't know where I heard that. I thought I wasn't insinuating
I read it
anything.
somewhere.
Someone told me on the elevator on the way up they couldn't wait for you to retire. And I felt like such a horse's ass.
That's all right. I'm sure they've heard those things before. Listen, you reach a certain age, I'm sure in television or in podcasting, whatever it is, where somebody goes like, hey, I hear you're retiring. Like, really? I didn't hear that, but maybe I should hear it. Kind of one of those things like you don't have to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here kind of deal.
You hear pretty much said that to me when I walked in today. So I'm not ready for retirement, but I guess I might be on the way out. We'll see. All right, so
that's why the door was locked when you came in as a sign.
Bingo. That's it. All right. So you pitched Division III, Cal Lutheran. I don't think you had a scholarship there either, right?
So Division III, there are no athletic scholarships, only academic. Unfortunately, I was a good student in high school. So lesson to all you high school kids who are listening or parents, get good grades because it'll help you. No matter what level you play at, good grades will help you.
Yeah. And so I bring that up partially because, we've got Brenton Doyle here right now in the Rockies system doing some big things, played Division II baseball in West Virginia. But to your point, what you do right now at Fast Performance and coaching players of all ages, even those that aren't even in the Denver area, you've got a lot of wisdom that can help both the players, on the physical side and the academic side, but also that kind of advice for parents as far as how to maybe stay out of their own way or stay out of their kids' way. What's one of the biggest pieces of advice, at least for parents, that you would give them in addition to, making sure that your kid's just well-rounded in general?
Sure. This could be a long diatribe, so I apologize ahead of time. I'm not a big fan of the showcase circuit or travel ball for that matter. And I know in most cases, it's a necessary evil, but I think for parents to be realistic about their child or their athlete's college potential, it needs to start early, right? And when you're a freshman, if you have certain goals, let's just say Patrick wants to play at pick a D1. You want to play at ASU? That's where I wanted to play. So Patrick wants to play at ASU, but Patrick only throws 70 miles an hour. So how do we get Patrick from, as a freshman or an incoming freshman at 70 to the metrics that are going to be necessary for Patrick to have success at Arizona State, or something where Arizona State's going to actually want you to come to their program?
Right.
And so player development becomes very, very important. It's what we do at Fast Performance. I don't run teams out of my facility. I look at myself as a player development facility. I do what effectively minor league coaches do for their players in the process of moving up towards the big leagues. So you've got to have certain measurables or metrics that are going to be desirable at the next level. Now, obviously with baseball not being played right now, college baseball is, it's plentiful, right? Yeah. If you have the, streaming packages you can watch college, they're fantastic. Right? We've got them on nonstop at the Cage right now. But I watch college baseball right now and I go, oh, that dude throws 93. That dude throws 95. Oh, that guy from Tennessee throws 103. Like, there's a lot.
Ben Joyce.
It is the quality of baseball in terms of talent is probably just as good at the Division I level right now as it is at the major league level. The difference is polish, right, and frequency of the the polished players, right? Big league level, baseball is the only sport where when you're drafted first overall, you're still not good enough to play at the big league level or the major league level or the highest level. Whereas basketball, football, hockey, whatever it is, you're first overall, guess what? You're in the league, right? So I think it's really important for parents to keep that in mind, right? That if there are certain goals that need to be met, you shouldn't look past those goals just for the sake of I'm going to play club ball or I've got to go do this showcase. I think if you're going to go to a showcase or do any of that stuff, you need to have something worth showing, right? If you throw 70 or 75 and you're going to a showcase with Division I schools, those guys are just turning the page. They're not paying attention to you, right? You throw 90 or 95, those guys are taking copious notes and they're getting your information afterwards and they want to have a discussion. They want to send you an email or they want to give you a camp invite or whatever it might be. So you've got to have measurables. So I think as a parent, it's important to look at, once you get to that 8th grade high school level, you got to look at player development and you got to think about it seriously. Early on in your high school career, it's not super important that, you go to all these showcases or that you play 60 or 80 games in the course of a summer. It's probably more important that your kid gets good sleep, eats a metric ton of food, and gets in the gym 3 or 4 days a week and gets stronger, because all of those things are going to contribute to success on the field. Once they get to that sophomore, junior, or even senior year, now we can start to hone in the skills that are going to be marketable to the next level, whether that's Division II school or Division I school or even a Division III or NAI. The levels at which major league players are at now, with more players throwing 100 mile an hour, you got average bullpen arms like 95, 96, the average starters 93. They take college and they raise the bar in college, right? Well, Division I athletics are up here. Division II is now up here. Division III, where I played, now granted, I'm a freak of nature and I've come to realize that over the years, but even Division III, where maybe a 75 or an 80 mile an hour arm used to be perfectly acceptable,
right,
is no longer acceptable, because they want the guys that are 82 to 85 or 85, 86 at the Division III level. Now, JUCO, you can argue JUCO guys, there's a place for you to play somewhere, right? There's a JUCO that needs a body. But JUCOs offer a great opportunity for players to develop and get another year or two before they move up to those bigger schools. And maybe they got a late start to the party or whatever it might be. So for parents that are listening or even, players, if you guys are listening to the podcast, I think it's important to keep those things in mind and, keep a long-term goal, but also have those short-term metrics that you want to get, you want to achieve before you leave high school. If the goal is to throw 90 and you throw 70 as a freshman, that's only 5 miles an hour every 12 months that you need to try and gain, right? So it doesn't seem like a lot, but 5 miles an hour can be substantial. But if you take a bite, a fraction of a mile per hour every day or every week or every month, it adds up. And next thing you know, you can look back and go, hey, look, I'm one of the best arms in the state. And it started when I was a freshman, and just having that mindset instead of, well, I've got to play for this team, or I got to play for that team, or I got to go to this showcase, and neglecting food, sleep, and weights.
And we have so much more information now about how to,
achieve those things 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like for me, I played throughout the summer. It wasn't a showcase circuit, or I imagine it might be called the showbiz circuit, for the way it goes about it and the cost and the bright lights and playing in all these different facilities. But had I had kind of, specific training like at Fast Performance and was working on different things, nutrition and building my weight up, because I was pretty, I'm actually the same size now as I was when I was in high school. So that wasn't big enough, right?
Sure.
So if I'd had that more dedicated approach, then when I did get out there and people saw me, I'm going to make an impact. So I might have less opportunities to be seen.
Sure.
But when I am seen, it's going to make more
You're going to
of
stand
an impression.
out, right?
Yeah.
And I think, just baseball in general over the last 5-6 years has grown immensely in terms of the knowledge and information that we have at our fingertips, the technology that we have access to. I can take a freshman athlete, put him on TrackMan, which we have at our facility, and I think we're the only privately held TrackMan in the state, which is awesome. Yeah. And we've had Rapsodo for a number of years, and we were an early adopter on that. But, I can take a kid and say, all right, listen, based off what I'm seeing here, you've got an incredibly high spin rate, or you've got incredibly clean arm action, or whatever it might be. Like, these are the next steps that I would take in your development in order to help you achieve your ultimate goals. And I think it's just knowledge and understanding of that information can help set a player apart where, the old traditional would be like, well, we're going to throw the ball down at the knees and we're going to paint the corners and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, if I've got a high spin rate guy or even a high velo guy, and I'm like, dude, you don't need to paint the knees. You need to throw balls at the belt or above and just blow doors off of guys. Like, fall in love with these pitches. Or maybe you got an incredible breaking ball. Like, your breaking ball is well above average. Throw it more. Like, just having that knowledge, because now we have the insight to that stuff, can help take an average player who doesn't know how to use his stuff and turn him into an elite player. It's something that we're doing over at Mullen, where I coach now, is we have Rapsodo, and I'm able to take our players and go, listen, I look at you and I say, normally in a normal situation, maybe you get cut. But I look at you and I go, you're going to throw a fastball one time per at bat, and then you're just going to throw sliders and curveballs and just trick the hell out of people. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it one inning at a time, right? And if you're comfortable in that, we're going to get you there, right? If you're not, then we'll find somebody else who can, because there's a lot of other guys that can do that type of stuff. So I think it's, the knowledge, the metrics, the information, the technology that we have now can take some of these average players and make them great players just with a little bit of information.
Yeah, that's amazing what you're able to do. And you work with athletes in other sports too. It's not just baseball as well, right?
So at our facility, yeah. So we train, we got a big lacrosse base. My co-owners are both Joel, who's one of my co-owners, is the strength and performance coach for the Colorado Mammoth.
Nice.
So, he's been doing that for, I think, 8 or 9 years now. So we've got a lot of lacrosse guys that come into the building. JC, who's my other business partner, he ran ski and snowboard Vail for 25 years. So his specialty is downhill and alpine athletes. He worked with gals like Mikhail Schifrin and Lindsey Vaughn when they were training up there. Hopefully you've heard of them. But, between hockey and baseball and basketball and football, we've had some combine guys come through. Lacrosse, like we've our guys, our strength and conditioning guys, their wealth of knowledge is not limited to one sport. They're on the cutting edge of all this stuff. We're getting ready to launch a lab program where let's just say you want to come in, you're like, I need to get on a strength and conditioning platform. I just don't know where to start.
Right.
Well, we put you through a functional threshold for power, which is a test that we can do on a bike, getting your heart rate and measuring your VO2 and just saying, all right, based off this test, these are the certain days of the week that you need to do high intent cardio. You need to stay in this range, right? These are the days you need to take it off. You need to stay within this heart range. And that maximizes your training potential, allows you to train longer, more frequently, and see better results. And so that's what our guys are doing right now at our facility. And then obviously I'm trying to point all of our high school athletes and be like, listen, I can only do so much from a mechanics standpoint and the technology piece, but I need you to eat, sleep, and work out more frequently. And that's where they come into play, to pair with those athletes and give them a very holistic, well-rounded player development model.
I don't have any kids, but I'm sending them your way. If and when
well, why
that
don't you
day
come
comes.
on over? We've got a podcast room in our facility. You can come over and we could do one of these there. It's not
date.
quite as cool as this place, but it'll do.
But you'll be there. So
I will be there, so it'll be slightly
part of the cool. There you go. I like that. Yeah. Something that's not very cool right now is the lockout. I don't know if you heard about that.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know when this thing's going to come back. I really do. Do you have a date in your head maybe?
Let's see. It's March 7th
or a
right
year?
now.
How about a year in your head?
2023.
I would probably put it at 10% that there's no season this year. High, low, what are you taking over under on? 10%, there's just no baseball season.
I think it's pretty. I think they're going to play at some point. But
so.
Baseball right now is just shooting itself in the foot and cutting itself off at the neck and just doing everything in its power to just be hated by everybody. I was talking to a gentleman last night who has a museum here in town. And
Bruce Hellerman?
It was Bruce Hellerman.
Right.
We were at Les Shapiro's celebration of life last night. And
beautiful.
He was talking to me. He is very upset, like almost to tears at how poorly baseball has handled this. Like, 2020 with the pandemic going, baseball had an opportunity to win the hearts and minds of America again, to be America's game again, right? And it had fallen out of favor and has for a number of years where the NFL has taken over. Now the NBA is jumping into the limelight. The NHL is making great gains, being back on major sports cable again. baseball had an opportunity to capture the market, and they did everything in their power to shoot themselves in the foot. And now they're doing it again, where baseball fans have said, listen, we haven't really had consistent games in 3 years.
Yeah.
What's the deal? And I predicted this years ago. I think I told you when we were setting this whole deal up, I predicted this years ago, this was going to be ugly, because there was a lot of things that needed to be fleshed out that had happened during the last CBA that were going to come down to very ugly arguments. And we're in that position right now. And I think Rob Manfred is a clown. He hates the game of baseball. I don't think he really even knows anything about it other than the fact that he draws a paycheck from it, every 2 weeks. I think Tony Clark has done an awful job as a player rep. I don't think he's done us any favors in any regard. And I'm always going to side with players, being a former player. And I feel like players should be entitled to everything they can possibly get. It's a $10.7 billion business. And, the mudslinging that's going on right now is all over numbers. It's an unrealistic conversation for most Americans to listen to and be like, well, they're only going to get paid $700,000 this year instead of $500,000.
Right.
The owners are only going to take home $1 billion instead of $2 billion. It's just an unrealistic conversation.
Doesn't mean anything.
Right? There are bigger issues at hand outside of the numbers, right? And all the zeros that are attached to them, even though that's what the lockout right now is about, right? The competitive balance tax is the biggest. I think that was the biggest gap of all the numbers that they put together.
And that's going to be the biggest one, right?
It will always
you can pay the young players,
Yes.
but if you prevent teams from being able to spend,
right,
that's going to hold back even more money.
Right, and it effectively operates as a salary cap, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the owners are like, well, we want to be able to spend more, and the players were like, well, no, we want you to spend less, and or whatever it might be, right? So that was the biggest gap of all the numbers that I read. That was like, I think there was a $50 or $70 million gap. Everything else was within a couple of $1,000,000 where you could say, all right, we can give and take. Maybe we can find some happy ground here. And I think they've found some common ground on some things. But my understanding is that, one side is slinging mud at the other and the other side's slinging mud at the other. And they're trying to have this PR battle and they're dragging it out in public, which is souring all the fans. Everybody's like, this is, a bunch of BS. Like, why are you guys doing this in public? Why aren't you doing it in private, right? You had 43 days to figure this out last year and you chose not to talk. Now all of a sudden you want to get things done at the 11th hour, and now it's not getting done, and now the season's delayed. Now, the fans aren't getting baseball, the players aren't going to get paid, and more importantly, a lot of the local economies. I've got friends that own bars downtown. Yeah. They're not being able to capitalize off games down at 20th and Blake, so they're hurting too, and fans are hurting. Everybody's hurting except for the people that are yelling at each other, and so there's a lot of stuff that's going on that is not good. But I also think that there's a lot of stuff that MLB still needs to figure out that has nothing to do with dollars and cents, right? It's access to the game. It's promoting the game. It's growing the game, giving, we were talking about this before we came on the air. Rob Friedman from Pitching Ninja, the shirt that you're wearing right now, has probably done more for Major League Baseball than Rob Manfred will ever do for the game of baseball in terms of reaching out to the next generation, getting fans involved with the game, and
marketing the excitement.
Yeah, Eric Sim was another one that we talked about. Yep. Even Trevor Bauer, whether you love him or hate him, has done more for the game in the last 3 years than Rob Manfred will ever do for this game, or even Tony Clark at this point. So there's a lot of other issues at hand that are not related to dollars and cents that Major League Baseball needs to figure out. They still haven't answered for a whole lot of other questions, right? And we talked about juice balls. Mm-hmm. They still have an answer for juice balls. They still have an answer for the Red Sox cheating scandal. They still have an answer for the Astros cheating scandal. They still have an answer for a lot of these other questions that are out there that fans are really concerned about. And they're hoping that just by sweeping it under the carpet, you'll forget about it. Right? We're going to have a conversation about dollars and cents right now. Don't worry about all that other stuff, right? Don't worry about the fact that you can't watch Rockies games if you don't have local networks, right? Or you live in the Midwest. Now I can't watch like 7 different teams because technically we're in the broadcast zone for the Twins and the Royals and the Cardinals and all those other teams. It's like, you want to grow the game. You want more people to be entertained by it. You want to, create more revenues that we can share and talk about. Give people more access to it. Promote your players, like allow people to watch any game at any time. I spent $160 a year on the MLB ticket. the MLB TV package, I can't watch games. Like, why am I paying you money then? I don't want to watch the White Sox and the Royals. I want to watch the Rockies play, right? I want to watch the Dodgers play. I want to watch somebody playing baseball at night in my facility, so I don't have nothing on in the facility. These kids want to watch it, but they can't because they don't have access to it. And that is probably more upsetting than any dollars and cents argument that we're going to have.
MLB Network does a decent job of cutting into games, but there needs to be a true red zone where you just literally, here's the at-bat.
Yep.
DeGrom, Tatis Jr.
Yeah, call it bases loaded or something like that, where you can just literally flip from game to game.
Give me every at-bat where what's the big at-bat going on right now?
Right.
Bo Bichette against John Means. All right, yeah, I'm interested in that one. Let's see him bounce
But you
back.
also, you and I are entertained by that. We're adults, we're grown men, and we've grown up with baseball. Mm-hmm. And I had this discussion with Vic and Moj the other day on the radio, and I said, how did you consume the game when you were a kid? I'll ask you the same question right now. We'll flip the script a little bit. How did you consume the game when you were a kid?
Well, I can't remember necessarily watching games all that much. So for me, it really was getting the newspaper every morning, flipping through, looking at box scores.
Sure.
There was a really good weekly magazine. I think it was called Baseball Weekly by USA Today. And I would just scour. They'd give you all the statistics, and you could go through there. And so a lot of it, even though I didn't like reading, probably was reading articles or just looking at box scores. And it'd be a couple games here and there. And the All-Star game was that one opportunity where you could finally see maybe what some other guys look like, besides knowing what they look like from their baseball cards.
Well, and
those are the biggest elements of it.
And I'm a little bit older than you, and I was talking to those guys about this too. I said, how did you consume the game? Well, I collected baseball cards, a lot of baseball cards. I have a boatload of baseball cards, and they're all worth nothing.
Zilch.
They're worth less than the cardboard they're printed on.
Yes, if you have 100 of them, theoretically they're worth 45 cents. But who's paying you 45 cents?
Nobody's paying
for
you
those 300 cards. No one.
So exactly, and so I consume the game by watching local games on local TV. Obviously, like we talked about Vin Scully and the Dodgers, right? Mm-hmm. But I also had a local card shop. I hung out there for endless hours when I was a kid, and I could buy packs, and I knew players and stats, and I collected sets and all this, right? In today's game, if you were a young athlete, how are you consuming the game? Well, most kids don't watch enough baseball. They don't watch any baseball, period. There's a giant disconnect between the kids that play the game and effectively the kids that play the game at the big league level, right? They don't watch major league games because we'll call them boring. They're too long. They don't understand, whatever it might be, right? Well, how else would you consume the game in today's market? Well, social media, right? That's how I consume most of baseball is Twitter and Instagram are like the best. Rob Friedman, right? Perfect example. Eric Sim, another great example of how you consume the game, right? Sports cards these days are out of the reach for any kid. I'm sorry, but they're just ridiculously. My kid's into sports cards right now, and I'm going to go broke buying them.
That industry is booming, but again, for adults with
they're booming for
income.
You and I, right, who have that disposable income now.
You're
because as
NFTs.
A kid,
kids don't want NFTs,
right? They want and you can't buy a $6,000 box of cards searching for a one of one.
No.
Right. And in that, you watch box breaks and things like that on the internet, and these guys, they rifle through things looking for an insert card, an autograph, and whatever it might be.
It's essentially stocks.
Right, it is. Stocks. I mean, it's gambling, is what it is, right?
Yes.
It's gambling because you're spending X amount of dollars in hope that you find a LaMelo Ball one of one that's worth $40,000.
Sell it and then buy new
100%, right? Or and the price of those cards will increase and decrease based on the success and failure of that athlete or the popularity or not popularity.
And that set in that box increases, what makes it harder
100%.
And harder to just buy a single.
But if you're
pack of cards
we're
for
talking
kids.
about a 10 or 11, 12-year-old. Right?
Can't afford that.
They don't have $600 to go spend on a box of cards or even $25 to buy a pack of cards where you might get 5 or 6 players. You may not get any special insert or anything like that. Right? And they sit there and they go, well, what did I spend my money on? I didn't get anything. Like my kid's done that many times where we've opened stuff and gotten nothing special. And he sits there and he's got like tears in his eyes. Like, why did I just spend $25? I wasted my money. And I'm like, you didn't waste your money because every one of those pieces of cardboard in front of you is the realization of a dream come true, right? And I'm trying to get him to think about it from that lens. Like first time I ever saw myself on a baseball card, I was like, holy cow, like for real, that's me. Like I had students that opened packs of cards that found my card and I'm like, I'm happily signing this for you.
Nice.
Like it's really cool to see that, but it's so out of the reach of the common player. there's no connection between the youth game and the professional game. Major League Baseball does an abhorrent job of promoting itself at the lower levels. They do an abhorrent job of promoting their best players. In fact, Rob Manfred, we talked about this earlier, Rob Manfred said it's Mike Trout's job to promote himself. No, it's not. It's your job. You're the damn commissioner.
Yeah.
Like he should be on the cover of every magazine, video game. He should be promoted on every social media profile, anything that you can do. Like This Week in Baseball should be featuring Mike Trout. And why? Because Mike Trout's probably the greatest player to ever step foot on the field, and nobody knows who he is, right? He plays for the redheaded stepchild of LA, right?
Yeah.
With the Angels. He's not on national TV, right? Baseball wants the bad boys, right? They want the A-Rods, and they want the guys that have negative reputation because it's easy to sell. It's just like local news media, right? If it bleeds, it leads, right? That's where we're at, right? Instead of promoting the good guy, well, Mike Trout's never done anything controversial. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Like promote him. Right? Promote the fact that he works his tail off and that, he's gotten to this level and he's the best at all these different things. But, in Rob Manfred's eyes, the World Series trophy is a piece of metal. We can't have a guy who is in charge of our league who looks at our league as just another thing. It's not another thing to most people. And you've got to be able to promote it. Like I'm the president for the biggest Babe Ruth affiliate in the state. And not once has MLB ever reached out to us in any way, shape, or form outside of their, pitch, hit, and run promotion they do, which is not really realistic for a lot. They do nothing to interact with our kids in our league. I'm like, why? Why is that? Why is baseball not doing these things, right? They say they have all these programs, but who are they really reaching out to? What communities are they reaching out to? Because it's clearly not ours. Right? They're clearly trying to grow the game somewhere else or in some other community when they should be trying to grow it across America and make it America's game once again. Because right now, if you were to think about the hierarchy of sports in America, baseball's probably not in the top 3.
Yeah.
Probably not. NFL is definitely number 1. Definitely. Right? The NBA probably number 2.
Yeah.
Right? Basketball or hockey, I would probably argue that hockey's probably more popular right now than baseball is.
Which is crazy to think of because with basketball and football, again, you just need the ball itself, and you can go make it happen. I mean, obviously you need the court, but again, you think about how easy it is. Like, you go past any, playground, and there's kids playing football. Right. Super easy. Yep. Basketball, again, too, you need the hoop, but you can get that done.
But there's
hockey is even harder to do than baseball, and yet
it's way more expensive too for kids, right? Way more expensive for kids. Baseball is one of the most expensive sports for kids to get involved in. I think the Aspen Institute said it's like an average of $600 for a youth athlete.
And all you should need is the mitt, if you think about it, right? The mitt.
Yeah, and I mean, like at Southeast Denver, we provide helmets and catcher's gear and balls, right? So, but you still got to buy a glove, right? You still got to have a bat. Right. And so, what's the price of a glove these days? Probably $40 to $60, depending on how fancy, if you want to get into fancy gloves, you're talking about $300, $400, $500. Your bats, depending on the model you get, you're going to be anywhere between $80 and probably $500, depending on how big, how fancy you want to get. Then you've got pants and socks and cleats, right? Specialty gear. And football, for all intents and purposes, is also a very expensive sport, but it's very popular, right? Yeah. It's especially popular in minority communities. Basketball, same thing, very popular in minority communities. Baseball is not very popular in minority communities. We have very few minority athletes in our league. Right. And, why is that? Well, it's not a cool sport, right? It's not in popular culture right now. Like there's whole Reddit groups that talk about what NBA players wore to the stadium. Right?
True.
There's not that for baseball.
And there's also if you can see it, you can be it. Who are they seeing? Who are the African American stars in baseball?
There are none, right? There are very few. There's starting to become some that are coming up right now, like Jazz Chisholms of the world, right? Where they're fantastic ball players, but MLB does nothing to promote these. So how are minority communities supposed to look up to baseball and go, I want to be part of that, right? When the league does nothing to promote it. Like it doesn't make a lick of sense.
And remember, even a few years ago, where they were, and I think they've lightened up on it, but they were preventing players from like designing on their cleats and stuff.
Yes.
It's like, again, that's marketing. That should be a good
The
thing.
NFL has even lightened the noose around that one and saying that we're going to let players express them. So, players, we have the Players Week right in MLB where they get to wear their nickname jerseys.
I hear that might not be coming back again.
But that was fun. It allowed players to express themselves. Like we were talking about this earlier with your producer and saying, the Latin players, celebrating home runs and
so exciting,
having flair and flash on the bases and this, that, and the other. I'm like, that's fun. That's how you promote the game. Like we watched the WBC a couple of years ago. I'm like, those are some of the most exciting games I've ever watched.
Yeah.
And then when the regular season starts, it's let's get the tie back suit, stitched up, and let's be professional.
Don't swing 3-0. Don't swing 3-0.
It's a businessman's thing, right? We're stuck up and stuffy, and all these other sports are letting guys play, right? MLB even had let the kids play. Remember that promotion that they had a couple of years ago?
Even though
they completely forgot about it.
Yeah,
they completely forgot that let the kids play because God forbid somebody should bat flip or fist pump or yell in excitement. Like Jesus Christ, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's
it drives me
some
nuts.
things definitely need to change, and the lockout is that
old
first
and stuffy.
Step.
It's old and stuffy.
All right,
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say,
we could be on this all day long.
We can and we should at some point. Think about that. All right, final couple things before we get out of here. Being in the history books for the Rockies as tied for the tallest, 6'8".
History
How
books.
about that?
Did
you know that you were?
I didn't know I was the tallest in history. I did know at one point it was Randy Johnson and I. We faced off against each other in 2007. We were at the time, the tallest combined starting pitching height in Major League history.
And that's been topped now?
It has been. I believe it got tied and then it got topped because I think Chris Young and Randy Johnson faced off against each other. And Chris is 6'10", and so is Randy. But I also think John Roush was 7 feet, and I think at some point he may have started against Chris Young or something like that. But for a little while, I had it.
All right, matchups of two pitchers, neither of them can be a general manager. Then it's you.
Right.
That crosses out Chris Young. We'll
right.
take him out,
well, perfect.
Out of the mix. Also, you might not know this, you are one of only 9 pitchers to ever start a game in Toronto. How about that? Do you remember starting in
I do
the
remember
Rogers?
starting in
I think it was 2002.
It was not a good start.
2007 and like 2013. That's the only time the Rockies have ever been in Toronto.
Two things I remember. One, I remember it wasn't a good start, and I was in the dugout, or I was in the clubhouse with my head between my hands, questioning my life choices. The second part was the game that I started in Toronto. Well, I remember I struck out Frank Thomas, and that was when he was chasing 500. And so I remember them switching out the baseballs when he came to the plate, and they were specially marked to make sure that if that was the ball that went over, that they knew that was the actual ball that I threw.
Oh wow! So he had 499 at that point.
I think he was 2 or 3 short at that point. I definitely wasn't in his book.
Do you have that thought in the back of your head? You're like, I'd like to be a part of history. That'd be kind of cool.
Sure, but not in that way.
Yes, and
like my buddy Taylor's in the book for he gave up a historic home run to Barry Bonds. I don't remember which one it was to pass whoever it was, but he gave up one of the historic ones. And I'm like, I'm sure he's like, I gave up Barry Bonds' 737th home run or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe that's kind of cool, but I also like not being in other people's, but saying like he never got me. Like I can't say that with Albert Pujols because he got me. But Frank Thomas, he never got me. King Griffey Jr. never got me. Some of the guys I grew up idolizing that are the best to ever play, like Barry Bonds never got me. I walked him 3 times, but he never got me.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's smart. You know who you did get at the plate? Do you know how many career hits you have?
3.
Okay.
Tom Glavine. 2 of them.
Twice on Hall of Famer Tom Glavine, folks.
And an infield single.
Oh, legging it out.
I believe it.
Oh, you're 6'8", so that's 3 steps.
The baby giraffe was running down the line pretty fast on that one. Yep, infield hit, fisted me on an 83-mile-an-hour fastball, probably. And Jose Reyes was the shortstop. There's another Rockies connection for you. And I legged it out. I beat it out. And then the second hit, they walked Torrey in front of me to load the bases. And he threw me, I think it was a fastball away. And I hit it down the right field line, past Carlos Delgado, who was old and on his way out at that time. So he kind of gave the Olay. And Sean Green, I believe, was playing right field. And I don't know why he was so damn close to the line, but by the time I hit first base, the ball was back to the infield because I swear to God I was going to go for 2.
You were thinking 2.
I was thinking 2 for sure. But I got an RBI out of it. So I've got 2 career RBIs and 3 career hits.
Who was the other hit off of?
Brian Bannister.
Correct.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. It was fastball away. I think it was a cutter away. I dumped it over the second baseman for an RBI single. And then I got the ball after the game.
Ooh.
And so
nice.
For those who are tuning in, so obviously baseball players love to rag each other, and we like to make things way worse than they really are.
Yeah.
So after my first, 2 balls that I have my first big league win and my first big league hit, and the ball on my hit for the hit ball said, somebody wrote the inscription on it because it wasn't the real ball, it was another ball, right? But they wrote off Brian Bannister, fly ball to right field that any good outfielder would have caught.
Wow.
So it is what it is, right? But those are fun. And then I've got the real ball, of course. My first big league win was against Ben Sheets in Milwaukee, and I have that game ball too. And they wrote I threw 5.5 innings. It was against Ben 3 Sheets to the win. They messed everything up on it, hoping to get me razzed, to get me really upset. I remember going in the locker room, and Dan Wheeler was on our team at the time, and he wrote. I'm pretty sure he wrote on the ball because I looked at it and I'm like, well, that's spelled wrong. Well, that's not right. Why would they say that about Ben? All those things. And he looks at me and he goes, something wrong with that ball, Hirsch? I said, nope, goodbye me. I wasn't going to let him get me on that. And then eventually I got the real game ball. So, yeah.
5.5 innings pitched.
Yeah, 5.5.
There you go.
5.5. So then I'll tell you one more fun baseball joke or story. So I beat Greg Maddux the first 2 times I faced him as a Rocky. The first one was opening day in San Diego, and the second time was
Game 4 of the 2007 season.
Yep. Yeah. And then the second time was 5 days later here in Colorado. So after the game in San Diego, LaTroy Hawkins, again stirring the pot, played with Maddux in Chicago, and he says, hey, Hirsch, you should get Maddux to sign a ball for you. I was like, really? Would he do that? And he's like, oh, yeah, you guys are exactly alike. You guys are very cerebral. You think a lot. This, that, and the other. I was like, all right, sweet. So I grabbed the ball out of the game bucket, and I gave it to the clubby, which is kind of standard practice. I said, hey, can you get Maddux to sign this for me? He's like, sure. So 2 days goes by, no ball back. Getting ready to leave. I'm packing all my gear up. I get this tap on my shoulder, and I get the ball. I'm looking at it. I'm like, all right, it's not the same ball. I said it had grass stains on it, whatever. It's as long as you sign it, that's great. So I turn it over, and I'm allowed to curse on here, right?
Yeah.
Sure? We're good with that? All right, good. All right. So I turn it over, and I look at the inscription. There's no signature. It just says, fuck your game ball, blow shit. And I was like, I just pissed off Greg. Like a guy that I idolized growing up, I just pissed off Greg. I can't believe that I just pissed off Greg Maddux. And so I'm packing my bag up, really upset with myself that I did this. And then the clubby walks back over and hands me the ball, and then Greg Maddux signed it right on the sweet spot. I was like, oh my God, he's just dicking with me, right? Because we've all heard the stories of Greg Maddux.
I thought he was going to give you a ball that was
pissing in shampoo
in piss.
bottles and all kinds of great.
Or he
and
delivered it to you naked or something
I've
that.
heard we've got a lot of great Greg Maddux stories I can share with you.
Yes.
So I take that ball, the first ball, and LaTroy Hawkins is sitting in the food room and he's eating, and I was like, hey Hawk. I threw him the ball. I said, hey, Maddux sent this over to me. And he turns it over and he reads it, and he falls out of his chair laughing. He goes, it's such a Maddux thing to do. He's such a clown. And so I still have both balls, and I cherish them and the story that goes along with them. The fact that I beat him twice in his career obviously, bodes well for me and just makes me feel good about my career, because it wasn't long, it wasn't ceremonious, but I did a lot of things in a very short amount of time that most players spend a lifetime chasing. So, but that's one of the things I'll always remember. Yeah,
it's that beautiful perspective that you had that also makes you a great coach too. Yeah. So I love that. I love where your head's at. I love all these stories. This is great. We'll have to go over to your facility. We'll check that out. We'll see if we can get you over here on retainer. We'll see if we can get a road gig going.
On retainer.
Yeah, that's it.
I love it.
It'll be fun. On Twitter, you're at Hirsh 5280.
Yeah,
no C.
No C. Probably the better one is at Fast Baseball Dev. That's where we do all our baseball stuff. I don't really post much on my personal one. And then on Instagram, at Fast Baseball, that's probably where you're going to see the most of kind of what we do at our facility. It's where we promote our players. It's just an easier format for video and pictures and hashtagging and all that fun stuff. So we do. We've got a TikTok also that one of my guys runs. It's at Fast Baseball. But we do reels. We like to have a lot of fun with our athletes and promote them. You know, we don't always work with the best athletes in town, but anytime that we can get them out there with their ball clubs and having success and continuing to play the game, then we promote them. So we're happy to do with what we do, and we absolutely love everything about it. So,
and we've got people who, you know, watching from all over, and so you even work with people that aren't from this area. You got a kid in Georgia, D1 commit.
I do.
Not Colorado. We're talking Georgia, and he can do that for you no matter where you're at.
Yeah, we do some remote training as well. I should probably in full confidence say that the kid from Georgia is the son of my wife's goalie coach from college. So, and I've known him since he's in diapers, but he has definitely taken baseball by the horns. All the things we talked about early: strength, food, sleep, training, and then I wrote his throwing program from the last couple of years, and he's going to end up at Texas A&M on a full ride. So, a lot of big things. His name's Colin Linder. You can follow him online. He's going to be a great athlete one day.
So 95 already.
He's 95, 90. Yeah, I think he actually hit 96 on the Rapsodo. So we'll keep that in the bay. Listen, I hit 97 in college, and forever I will say that I can throw 97, or I used to throw 97. I can throw 70 now, maybe 77. But yeah, whenever you reach those pinnacles, those are huge milestones, right? You're talking about doing something that a extremely small percentage of people in the world are capable of doing. And so as a high school kid, that's a huge step for him. And obviously we wish him all the success, but yeah, any player that wants to do some remote training, we've got some awesome tools that we use in video and discussions and things like that. So
Fast Baseball Dev.
Yep. And then our website's fastcolorado.com. So
fastcolorado.com.
you can find all our information on there. And, you know, if people want their metrics or they just want to come talk or just get an eval, we can do that as well.
We'll leave a link in the description here on YouTube and the podcast as well, so people can go and check out some more of your work. It's been fantastic. Thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it. All the wonderful stories and laughs. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at DNVR_Rockies. I'm at Patrick D. Lyons on Twitter. Again, 50 cents for your first month at the DNVR.com.
And a giant beer.
A giant
beer.
Size, yeah. Hey, you know what? This has been a lot of fun, but you know what they say about momentum? It's only as good as tomorrow's podcast.
That's it.
So I'll talk to you then.